Nobody likes disequilibrium. Nobody likes it at all. Hi, this is Dr. Daniel Rodriguez here today to discuss more about the art of learning. Today we're going to talk about something known as disequilibrium. Equilibrium means balance, and in terms of cognition and learning, we have to look at having our conceptions, the way we see ourselves, the way we see our world. You may say our worldview. We want to see if that matches the data of experience, what we're experiencing in the real world. If there's a match between the way we see ourselves, the way we see the world, and the way others see us and the way others see the world, we have equilibrium. If there's a mismatch between our conceptions of ourselves, our conceptions of the world, we experience disequilibrium. So disequilibrium is a very, very painful, it's a very, very distasteful feeling. However, I argue that it's the quintessential element of success in life, in any realm of life, whether it's learning new sports skills, whether it's learning in the academic arena, whether we're discussing social or interpersonal relationships, anywhere in the world. Experiencing disequilibrium is a must if we are to improve ourselves. So when I talk about equilibrium, I'm talking about, let's deal with cognition right now. And so when I'm talking about equilibrium, and in this case, let's talk about views of ourselves. Equilibrium refers to congruence between my view of myself and the way the world perceives me. And it's really important for me to discuss how the world perceives us. And sometimes the world can, or others, can have faulty perceptions of us. But if everybody sees us one way and we see ourselves a different way, then there is likely something very faulty in our self-perceptions. So that's an important point. I mean, if only one person sees us in one light, but everybody else sees us in a different light, then, well, that one person may be wrong, is likely wrong. We have to, at some point, respect what is known as the generalized other, the way other people see us. This generalized other helps us know ourselves because we cannot actually see ourselves. I mean, if we were living in a world that only included ourselves and no other human being, it would be really hard to know ourselves. We don't have a mirror, in other words, to judge who we are. So having other people out there able to judge us and to give us feedback is critical in our self-development. Without those other people out there, we have no way of knowing anything about ourselves. I mean, it's an interesting question. How can you know yourself without other people out there to help? Well, I say it's impossible. And what would you know if there's no one else out there to tell you something about yourself? Okay, so we have these other people here, what George Herbert Mead, the sociologist, referred to as the generalized other. We have this generalized other out there that helps us to know who we are. So if we perceive ourselves in one way, and everybody else perceives us in that same way, then we experience congruence. And that congruence is equilibrium. And we feel really good. Our conceptions of ourselves match the way other people see us. So we experience this really peaceful state of equilibrium. So really, we don't have to do anything. We don't have to change anything. If, on the other hand, we see ourselves in one way and everybody else sees us in a different way, and we experience that, and we have to experience that. Somebody has to tell us, hey, you aren't what you think you are. Then we start experiencing disequilibrium. That may include defensiveness. That may include anger, sadness. It may include many, many different ways of experiencing, or different forms of affect or emotion. But whatever it is, we don't like it. We don't like it at all. It's a very displeasing feeling. If then we adjust ourselves or our views of ourselves to become congruent with the way other people are seeing us, then actually we're better off. We reestablish equilibrium. So if we've actually improved ourselves. So experiencing disequilibrium, although distasteful, actually helps us become a better individual, because now we're incorporating the generalized other into our self-perceptions, and now we've become a better person. So we're testing our self-perceptions against the data of experience, and I'm actually discussing right now, what I'm discussing right now was discussed by Seymour Epstein in one of his articles on the self. He called the self theory. Self theory is like any theory. A good theory has to be tested against the data of experience. And if it holds up, then it's a good, valid self theory. But a self cannot improve unless it experiences disequilibrium. So this disequilibrium allows one to actually come to know the self and to improve the self. So what's the prescription here for a healthy sense of self, and how does this all relate to learning? Well, we can become better individuals if we allow ourselves to experience more disequilibrium. And to experience disequilibrium, we have to put our worldviews or our views about ourselves up to the test. We share them with others and get feedback. So we need that feedback. And this is the same thing that happens when one is learning a sports skill. Like, for instance, I'm working on improving my forehand, and I had a videotape by an instructor recently, and he pointed out that I was hitting the ball too close to my body, which made me feel disequilibrium, because I didn't know that. Or actually somebody had told me before, so I had heard it before, and it made me feel, oh man, this is awful. What am I going to do? I felt a little distressed about it, and I've been working now on improving that. So I took that information, it created a sense of disequilibrium, and now I'm trying to improve it so I can reestablish equilibrium. For me, equilibrium will occur when the coach no longer says that I'm hitting the ball too close to my body. So the same thing happens with yourself. Let's say if you think you're the most, if you're a guy and you think that you're the most handsome man in the world, and other people out there are thinking, oh, yeah, not so. It's important for you to change that self-perception, so that you can harmonize your sense of self with the generalized other and establish equilibrium. You go, oh, okay, well, maybe I'm not the most handsome guy in the world. I'm just a regular guy. And then that's an important step to take if you're going to experience equilibrium again. We strive for peace in our lives. So why not have peace? And you attain peace by creating temporary disequilibrium, overcoming that disequilibrium, and reestablishing equilibrium. The more often one does this, the less likely actually one is to experience more disequilibrium spontaneously. You start talking and somebody says, oh, you're wrong. And then a whole bunch of people say, you're wrong. And then you experience disequilibrium. The more you adapt your views about yourself, your views about your world, to the data of experience, the less disequilibrium you are to experience in the long run, the more peace you have, and the more likely you are to experience what is known as the oceanic feeling. This is this really, really special metaphysical state where there's unity between yourself and the environment. It's this mythical oneness with the environment that people talk about. You actually experience that more when you have equilibrium, when you have allowed yourself to experience so much disequilibrium that you have very, very few places to adapt anymore. You've kind of adapted your sense of self. And I think that's the key to learning. The key to learning is to get as much feedback as you can about everything, opening your sense of self. opening my conceptions of self in every arena, whether it's academics, physical, intellectual, social, interpersonal, whatever you want to call it, spiritual, opening your views to criticism, accepting that criticism, adjusting your sense of self to the generalized other. By doing that, by allowing yourself to experience that disequilibrium, you'll eventually create a higher, very, very open sense of self that'll experience less and less disequilibrium and allow you to live a very, very peaceful, healthy life. You'll become really what the ideal self is. And later on, I'll talk about what the characteristics are of this ideal self. I actually once wrote an article on this, and I'll review that with you at some point. But you're more likely to experience it if you have an open self that allows others to criticize it. So experiencing disequilibrium is essential to improving the self in any arena, whether it's learning sports skills, learning job-related skills, learning academic skills, or social, interpersonal skills, even spiritual skills. Allowing yourself to be open to criticism is the key to success. That's all I want to talk about today. So allow yourself to experience disequilibrium. Go out there and feel that pain, embrace that pain, accept it, and move on to a higher sense of self. Thanks for listening today.